And we're back.
Welcome back, everybody, to the only internet podcast that manages to combine the erudite brilliance of academia with the low gutter-snipe values of politics.
Yeah, that's right. This is Doctors Not Doctors. I'm Dr. Silverstein.
I'm Dr. Armstrong.
And we are Doctors Not Doctors.
We are. That is true. And we have got an interesting show today because once again, the universe has decided to give us a week full of horror and mayhem and, a little bit of what some people might call piracy, Chris.
Piracy.
But before we get to that, let's talk about this sceptered isle, shall we? This
sceptered isle, yeah. Let's talk about an interesting outcome that's happened this week. Well, and if you are not familiar with how other countries work, let's say from the United States, and you don't know how things work in other countries, the government is able to shift its cabinet or its people who work in the cabinet at any time. The prime minister has a lot of power here, and he has the ability to remove people and put people in place without any confirmation system. So the House of Commons or the House of Lords, nor the House of Lords have any ability to say yes or no to people. And this is only really in the UK.
To bring up a minor point, though, right? I mean, surely when the prime minister is chosen, it's because the prime minister has the backing of a majority of the House of Commons and therefore the cabinet as an expression of the prime minister's choices. The House of Commons does have the power to veto it just by chucking out the prime minister with a vote of no confidence, or alternatively refusing to even put a prime minister in place if they don't like the proposed cabinet.
Well, there is no proposed cabinet. They just appear one day.
I suppose that's true, actually.
There's no like, this is who we like. There's no time between who I think we're going to be in, who we propose to be in, and who is in. It is minute 1, person X is in. Minute 2, person Y is in, and that's what's happened this week. So. There was a massive reshuffle in the United Kingdom, which means that all the government ministers, the secretaries of state, they've all been moved around with different positions or no position at all. So the trigger to this reshuffle was the resignation of the deputy prime minister and housing minister, whose name is Angela Rayner, who was the MP for, I believe, Ashton-under-Lyne. The shortest version is that it came to public knowledge that she didn't pay enough stamp duty, or basically a tax, on when she bought a house.
Right.
Now,
and is the argument here that she did this deliberately, Chris?
The argument, some people might claim that she did it deliberately, but the problem is that it doesn't seem like she did it deliberately, because the house itself was the result of a trust that was established because her son there was an issue when he was born, and the hospital paid money to him because he needs lifelong care.
Right.
And then the money from that went into a trust and I believe that the trust bought the house.
Yes. And also I think the thing is that the house that is under question, it's owned by the trust.
Yes.
And that's actually an important point here. The issue that she seems to be facing is that when you buy a second home, that's not going to be your primary residence, then you pay a higher rate of stamp duty, basically a tax that you pay on purchasing a property, right?
Yeah.
So the issue is that when they bought that house with the money from the settlement, and then placed that house in trust for her son, and then Angela Rayner maintained 25% ownership, or she was 25% the beneficiary of that trust, and her husband was another 25% beneficiary, but the other 50% going to her son. She sold her parts after their divorce, and then bought a new flat. And when she bought that new flat, she stated that was going to be her primary residence. And so she paid the lower rate of stamp duty. Do I have that correct?
More or less. I mean, the issue is that it's incredibly complicated and it's easy to make these kind of mistakes. The problem is that she was the housing minister.
Yeah.
So in politics, she took on the position of housing minister. And therefore, her housing issues have to be above board. They have to be whiter than white, purer than pure. And obviously, this information came out and proved that it wasn't. And she submitted herself, when she realized that she had made the mistake, she submitted herself to the government's independent ethics advisor, who basically only can give advice. They can't kick anyone out. But kind of another backstory here. In the past, in the last conservative governments, the adherence to the ministerial code, which is a completely conventional system that it's only enforceable by the prime minister, was effectively ignored and forgotten about. So Keir Starmer had a huge problem. He can't protect the deputy of the Labour Party and his deputy prime minister in the same way that Boris Johnson could protect any number of people in his cabinet. So,
well, it's expected that the Conservatives will be corrupt, I believe. Yeah. I think that's written into the unwritten Constitution.
It's written into the unwritten Constitution because she is on the left. She took a massive beating in the press. And then the independent ethics advisor sent a message to the prime minister after reviewing the case saying, yeah, she should have known better. She should have done better. And therefore, she has to go. She's broken the ministerial code, which means that she's got to resign or you've got to fire her. So she resigned before she was fired. Letters were exchanged, which is a thing that happens here. But that triggered something else. That triggered this massive reshuffle, which clearly was in the works for months. And kind of at the same time, all these different positions started getting removed and filled. So because I work for the S&P, I will start with the removal of Ian Murray as the Scottish Secretary of State for Scotland. That was unsuspected, where he was basically removed and he was replaced with a guy named Douglas Alexander, who was in the last Labour government as Secretary of State for Scotland for a period of time.
So he's got a little bit of he's got some experience in the role.
He has some experience, and also because the S&P currently in the polls is ahead of every other party, and obviously Labour wants to be the next government in Scotland. So they're thinking that if they change it back to somebody from the old days, I assume that they're going to bring back some of that old Labour charm, which was voted out in like 2011, 2012.
I mean, I do feel like there might be a slight issue if the Labour Party's plan for winning an election is to rely on Keir Starmer having charm. That does seem a little bit like outside of his bailiwick, if you will.
It's not Keir Starmer having charm. It's that how can they appeal to Scotland to vote Labour at this time? And of course, everyone's afraid of reform, so it's all up in the air. But other big moves would be Pat McFadden, who is he is now the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. I believe he replaces Liz Kendall, and DWP is a huge thing because of things like the 2-child benefit cap, where the government says if you have more than 2 children, then you no longer can get the same amount, or if
you can't get the same level of benefits that you could for your first 2 children for your next child. So basically, it's like the state saying, we're not exactly China, but
yeah, we're not telling you not to have another kid, but should you have a third child on your head, be it.
If that kid happens to starve to death, I mean, well, that's
tough.
That's just the breaks.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Another big move would be David Lammy, who is universally loved, from what I understand.
Sure. He recently, what was he, fishing with JD Vance, I believe?
He was somewhere with JD Vance. He was doing his best to suck up to him, which is probably the better way of me putting it.
Boy, this Labour government's really covering itself in glory, isn't it?
It's doing a really good job of preparing Britain for an authoritarian government. So David Lammy, who's been the foreign secretary, who's kind of been the face of Britain's policy in Gaza or about Gaza, he's now been moved to the Justice Secretary, but he's also been made Deputy Prime Minister, which I think is very interesting.
That is very interesting, actually. This is definitely not a lateral move then. I mean, Foreign Secretary is one of like the 4 really big positions.
There's a big 3, Home Secretary, Foreign Secretary, and maybe Secretary of State for Defense. I mean, no, Chancellor of the Exchequer. Obviously, it's Chancellor, Home Secretary, and Foreign Secretary. Those are the big 3. Yeah. That's who you want to be in one of those positions for some, because they also have the biggest buildings and the biggest offices, and they have the biggest portfolios.
Absolutely, right?
Obviously.
Yeah.
Speaking thereof, Rachel Reeves, Chancellor of the Exchequer, not moved.
No,
not moved.
No, because I feel like it's one of those things where in British politics, you don't touch the treasury. You don't move the chancellor of the exchequer lest the heavens fall, because it's a real indication that something has gone horrifically badly. Like my understanding is that in this country, the chancellor of the exchequer is sort of someone who's, at least certainly since the time of Tony Blair, I would seem, has been like someone who has been understood to be, not exactly co-prime minister, but someone who has a lot of independent power inside of the party, which is why they can get chosen for the position, but also because markets sort of depend upon, there being a certain stability in financial policy and in economic policy. So replacing a chancellor of the exchequer, that would be really, really big and an indication of a massive change in how the government was planning on doing things.
Yeah. It also means that it means either that person's doing a really bad job or you're planning a massive change on policy, which means that the markets are going to be in turmoil until they figure out who the new person is, which is the wildest part about any of how the UK works, specifically in how the executive is appointed.
That's right.
They are just appointed on vibes. Like, I don't know if the person who's becoming the, Secretary of State for the Home Department, Shabana Mahmood, if she knows anything about, policing or immigration policy or any of that. We don't know that, but we know that she's loyal. Or she's believed to be loyal to Keir Starmer. Steve Reed, don't know much about him. Peter Kyle, don't know much about him. Does he know a lot about business and trade? Because he's now the business and trade secretary. Liz Kendall, well, she was doing DWP from what I remember, but now she's doing Department for Science, Innovation, and Technology. Emma Reynolds, was she a farmer? Because now she's doing the Department for Environment, Food, and Rural Affairs.
Well, that's true. But at the same time, the whole idea of the system as it operates in Britain relies very heavily upon the civil service, right? So you've got sort of a permanent layer of bureaucracy of people who are subject matter experts who've been working in their departments. This is what they do. They have all the knowledge, so to speak. And then the traditional idea, certainly up until the 1980s, was that the minister comes in, and the minister is not expected to be a subject matter expert. They are expected, however, to take advice, to ask questions, to make determinations, and basically to, learn on their feet as they're going through. I think since the 1980s, there's been more of a focus on bringing in outside experts as well, special advisors. Well, but they're often called. Yeah, but
they have to give the civil servants something to do. Civil servants aren't going to come in with like their ideas. They haven't been elected, and that's not what they're there to do. They're there to implement the policy of the government in place.
Oh, right, but also to give advice on, well, if that's what it is, if that's the goal that you're seeking, here's the ways that we believe that could be dealt with.
Yeah.
So in the same way that in the United States, right, you don't have to be a general to be the Secretary of Defense,
but it helps
/ Secretary of War. Because it's civilian control of the military. The whole idea is that you don't necessarily have a subject matter expert, but you do have someone who is, reasonably intelligent, able to take advice, able to ask questions, and able to bring the political support necessary to achieve their policy aims.
Yeah, but I think cabinet in the States and cabinet here are two very different beasts. The level of expertise that was, at least under Democrats, expected of the people who rise to the position are much higher than here. Where so if you make somebody Secretary of State for Defense, do they know anything about defense? Well, they have to learn on the job in the middle of several massive crises in the world, right? So you have to worry about Ukraine, and it's like, well, do you understand how warfare works? Well, no, my last job was in DEFRA. Like that's insane. That's why I have a huge problem with the way the cabinet is appointed here. For example, in other countries and in Scotland, the cabinet is put forward for a vote. The Parliament has to approve cabinet.
Right.
It doesn't just get pushed on you. You have to say, yes, those are all the right kind of people. And occasionally they pick somebody out and say, no, that's the wrong kind of person. You can't have that person.
Okay, so it's not put forward as like a slate where it's everyone up or down.
It depends it depends on the legislature, right? So if the legislature says like it does come out as a block, but then you can move a motion that says everything but to that one person, that person obviously knows that they're the target's on their back. That's what happens in Scotland. Okay. And I can't think of any other examples right now, like from Germany or France or whatever, because I didn't think about this before we started talking. But like
that's the joy of live podcasting.
Yeah, live podcasting. We could pause it and I could take another 25 minutes to go dig around, but we're not going to do that.
No, we got things to do. We got things to get to. And I will say this, Chris, that if you're going to make the argument that the American system is better at, making sure that the people who are placed into the cabinet know the first thing about what they're doing, may I introduce you to Donald Trump's administration?
Well, that's why I said under Democrats. Because over the past 10 years, because the last two Republican presidents have been Donald effing Trump.
Yeah.
The people that he's put, and the first Trump administration at least had people who were tangentially, respected in their fields, even though they were massive conservatives. Rex Tillerson, right, as Secretary of State. And you notice that those people who were, had some kind of, quality about them, they all left. They ran away. Like they
usually saying things like Donald Trump is and I'm going to quote here from Rex Tillerson, fucking moron. And that's,
and he hasn't been proven wrong. And in this administration, you can see the people that have been put in. And in America, again, we have the firewall of the legislature. As long as the legislature works, they keep people out who are absolute fucking nutcases.
Right. Well, and in fact, during George W. Bush's presidency, right, there was an attempt to place on the Supreme Court.
I think it was his personal lawyer.
It was his personal lawyer.
Yeah, I remember that.
And the Supreme Court, obviously, it's a lifetime appointment. It's incredibly important. You don't just want to put anyone there, although there's no constitutional reason why you couldn't put someone who wasn't even a lawyer on. And in fact, some of the more well-regarded justices in the Supreme Court were not lawyers when they were placed there. However, Ms. Mitchell, the appointee in question, was so thoroughly underqualified that even, I believe it was a Republican Senate, said, no, we're not doing this. And for good reason, because Ms. Cleta Mitchell was also involved in Donald Trump's attempt to get Georgia to find some extra votes to throw the election.
She was part of that too.
Oh, she absolutely was.
I mean,
she is a disgrace as a lawyer, and if she hasn't been disbarred at this point, I simply don't know what the Georgia Bar Administration or the American Bar Association, more to the point, is doing.
Exactly. So that's the difference between the two different parts, right? So that's why a reshuffle here is it's a much bigger thing, and that's why they can happen frequently. So there was what they called a mini reshuffle last week, and the prime minister created a position called chief secretary to the prime minister, which is a brand new position, which is pretty nebulous. It's the entire point of it is just to get the policies of the government through parliament, I guess, which is normally the chief whip's job.
That's interesting.
But the chief whip was also moved. I'm just doing a shout out to Alan Campbell, who put in a big shift in the first year of the Labor government, and he's now been moved into a position that's called leader of the House. And the leader of the House position, they basically set the agenda and they ask questions, and they're supposed to represent the House of Commons inside cabinet. Okay. He was the chief whip, and now the chief whip is a guy named Jonathan Reynolds, who I don't really know anything about.
Fair.
So that's been the reshuffle. It's been an interesting jump around over the past few days. It seems to have calmed down, but we'll wait and see what happens next week when Parliament comes back in for the second of the 2.5-week session before conference recess. Let's move on now to things America style, or in this case, I'm going to be America's style, because Donald Trump and the MAGA administration are super excited about killing people.
Yeah, they really like it.
Yeah,
they seem to think that this is actually. I'm going to quote J.D. Vance here. The highest calling that the American military has is to kill civilians. It seems. Now, you might think that's a hell of a claim for me to make.
It's a huge claim. Huge claim.
J.D. Vance. But for those of you who haven't been following the news, what happened is this: a few days ago, the Trump administration, or rather, the president, announced that he had just ordered the American military to destroy a small boat in the Caribbean carrying 11 people. Now, why would the president blow up a boat in the Caribbean carrying 11 people? Why would the president kill 11 people, Chris?
Now, it's an interesting case because he says that they were drug smugglers.
Drug smugglers. I see.
Drug smugglers. And there was a video of them getting machine gunned.
Wow.
I thought it's a boat or something. Maybe they have the video of the boat. I'll have to check the video of them getting machine gunned. But definitely, like America tracked them down, said, "You guys are drug traffickers. Let's fucking kill them." And if this was an action movie written by Jerry Bruckheimer, we'd all be like, "Oh yeah, that's fucking awesome!" And there'd be huge music behind it, and explosions, and and some muscle bound star would be like in the helicopter, like, "You keep the drugs off our street." But we don't live in a movie.
Yeah, no, this is bad, Chris. This is really quite bad.
Now, I'm going to ask why, because I'm just playing devil's advocate, because killing drug dealers is good.
Well, the thing is, the law says that you don't execute drug dealers, Chris, because it's not a capital crime to deal drugs.
I got one better for you. I got one better. How do we know they were drug dealers?
Oh, that's a really good question.
How do we know they were drug dealers?
Well, you see, now all the evidence of the drug dealing and the drugs, you see, Chris, was on the boat, and the boat is now at the bottom of the Caribbean Sea. So what evidence do we have that they were in fact drug dealers? And the answer is none. There is none evidence of them having broken any law. Now, this is particularly interesting as well, because let's say that they were in fact drug smugglers. They had a boat full of drugs. They were taking those drugs to sell them to people in exchange for money. And this might raise a few questions, such as, where were they going to sell these drugs? So it turns out that when Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, first announced what had happened, he said that the boat was en route to Trinidad, which the more keen-eyed observers in our audience may realize is not actually the United States of America at all. And in fact is quite close to the coast of Venezuela from where this boat originated.
So basically, and what he said, just make sure we get this right.
Yeah.
These particular drugs are probably headed to Trinidad or some other country in the Caribbean.
If indeed there were drugs, according to Marco Rubio, when he announced all this, he said that they were heading to Trinidad. He also said that while the U.S. could have intercepted this boat, intercepted, arrested, seized the drugs, shown the proof of the drug smuggling to, the world, that the president decided, no, we're just going to kill them all. And so they did.
Yeah, and they were bombed, not machine guns. Sorry about that, guys. I don't want to get that point wrong.
Yeah, we don't want to spread misinformation on, people being machine gunned to death instead of being bombed to death.
Instead of being bombed to death. Now,
entirely different, Chris.
And I think we need to explain why this matters. Again, the Trump administration is doing something that's potentially massively illegal, right?
Oh, I would say it's almost certainly massively illegal, Chris.
But the point being is that we won't care if we say that we're killing Venezuelan drug criminals, right?
Yeah.
No one's going to bat an eye. The problem is that if the U.S. government can't start, but we also have that issue with North Korea.
Well, yes, we'll be talking about that.
Yeah. So if the government, it can just start declaring people to be the thing that they want to kill.
Yeah, and then kill them. Without any proof.
How does that prevent the government from them claiming you are one of those people?
Yeah. Well, and of course, the whole point here is that they're working their way up. They're working their way up the chain, Chris. Okay, so let's walk through all the ways in which this is completely insane and just incredibly terrifying. If you're the kind of person who wasn't a big fan of fascism in the 1930s.
Okay.
Right? So number one, we have no evidence that the people on the boat were committing any crimes. And that's because whatever evidence there was, the administration blew up.
Yeah.
When it killed everyone.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. Number two, even if everything they say about what these people were engaged in was true, and while Marco Rubio said that they were heading to Trinidad, Trump later said they were moving. No, they were going to the United States.
Which he may have been told. Let's be honest. Somebody may have told him.
It's possible, but also, how big was this boat? How much fuel did it have? And could that boat have reached the United States?
Yeah.
Because Venezuela's that's the
tip. That's the northern tip of South America.
That's a trip. that's a little bit of a trip, right?
It's got to be several days.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, it kind of seems like there's a real question here. But let's pretend for the moment that they were heading to the United States. None of that would justify the United States killing them. Like, that's just not how anything works. If people break the law, you arrest them, you try them, the government shows the evidence, and then a jury convicts them if the evidence is sufficient.
Yeah.
Right? And we don't do that for fun. We don't do that to be nice. We do that to make sure that the government doesn't just start killing people, because when governments decide to just start killing people, millions of people get killed. It's pretty bad. And
if you're thinking that, hey, you know, these bleeding heart lefties, you know, like, just why do you care about these drug dealers getting killed? Geniuses, we have the Navy. We have the U.S. fucking Navy. Yeah, you could get them in international waters and then get a giant Navy ship to be to sit right next to them and say, well, we know where you guys are now. Yeah, and then you have to put them in the position of either they surrender or they attack the Navy, and then we can't talk about it. Right. There are so many other ways to go about it other than just drone striking them, or however they were killed. They were bombed to death. Well, and that brings up another really interesting issue here, right? So, under what legal authority could the United States even engage in this kind of violence, right? So, if you're thinking that they justified this using the authorization for the use of military force during the War on Terror on account of Donald Trump has declared that drug smugglers are terrorists, so that means he gets to kill them. Well, that's actually not what the administration said. The administration, they did say that drug smugglers are terrorists, and they were totally terrorists, and that's why they killed them. But they weren't basing it off of the AUMF. Okay. Because the AUMF was literally just about Al-Qaeda and those who had helped to pull off the attacks on 9/11 in 2001. It was geared towards American action in the Middle East. It had no application whatsoever to the Caribbean, to Latin America more broadly. So instead, the Trump administration appears to be claiming that they did this under the president's inherent Article 2 authority. Oh, wow. Yeah. So, you know, just because he's president, he gets to do this, right? And wow. An argument could be made that in the case of the United States being attacked, the president must, as the commander-in-chief, have the ability to respond. And I don't think anyone would say that that's insane or crazy, right? The problem is that the people on this boat were not the Venezuelan military. They were not attacking the United States. Yeah. The United States was under no threat from them. And, you know, if you're going to say that, oh, well, you know, some Americans later on might have taken fentanyl and died, and thus these people would have declared war on America by selling drugs to Americans, right? If you're going to say that you kill any Americans, you're at war with America, well, the United States just killed a bunch of Venezuelans, so does that mean we're at war with Venezuela now? Again, so like these are all huge issues that are now just left out in the open. What does Venezuela do? Now, Venezuela, I'm no fan of Venezuela. No, I'm no fan of the Venezuelan government either. I mean, Venezuelans in general, fantastic. Yeah, I'm sure they're great people. Yeah, but the Maduro regime is very bad. Yeah. At the same time, Donald Trump is very bad and murdering civilians. And these were civilians. Like, this is absolutely against the laws of war. This is against the law of the sea. This is against the U.S. Constitution. This is against U.S. criminal law. This is not justifiable. And I know that every single center-left and lefty person in this audience think to themselves, well, Obama killed a bunch of people too with the drones, and, you know, that's just what America does. And it's like, my dudes, my brother in Christ. This is a big shift, because this isn't, we are going to blow up a guy who is part of a terrorist organization that is literally, you know, engaged in constant hostilities against the United States. Yeah. Oh, but also when we do it, we're just going to kill a bunch of collateral damage. Too. Right? Yeah, exactly. We'll just have a lot of collateral damage and whatnot. But, you know, hey, sometimes those 5-year-olds have to die if you really want to get that terrorist. That's bad. That is a bad set of policies that has killed a large number of people, and it has made the world worse. This is a big step change in that, because now it's whoever the president wants to kill, civilian or military, whether or not they've engaged in any violence against Americans. Now anyone can die. You know what this is? Yeah. This is clear and present danger. This is clear and present danger. This is the movie or the book Clear and Present Danger. Right. Oh, God, we're living in a movie. It's specifically what happened in that movie.
Yeah.
The president's friend was involved in drug trafficking. The drug traffickers killed his friend. Then I think the president gave a wink and a nod to his NSA director and somebody at the CIA and his chief of staff, and they arranged to kill the people who killed his friend completely illegally.
Right.
And then Jack Ryan finds out, and there's a whole thing, and because they have to use American resources to do it.
Does Jack Ryan say, "Oh, that's great! Hooray! The president should have the power to murder his enemies"?
Oh no! He has this great line. He starts yelling at the president, and the president's like, "You can't bark at me like a junkyard dog, Mr. President. It's my right to." And I mean, it's a great movie. It's a great 1990s movie, and obviously there are people who watched it and thought that the president was the bad guy, and then there's people who watched it and thought the president had a really good point.
Yeah, I guess so.
And that's kind of what's happened here.
Yeah, so this is this is something you're going to want to watch, my friends.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I don't know, it just sort of seems to me like it's a bad idea if, the president has the power of life and death over anyone he says so, especially when the president then starts putting out tweets saying he's going to invade Chicago with himself as one of the generals from Apocalypse Now, claiming that they're going to invade. Which
we will come back to in just a second. Mm-hmm. So we'll see you then. And we're back.
We're back, everybody. Back to discuss the joys of the United States federal government invading the city of Chicago.
Yeah, it's not that fun. Doesn't sound fun to me.
Yeah,
Patrick.
that's actually
we talked about it last week. We've talked about this in the last episode. So as we said in the last episode, Donald Trump and his MAGA coalition, his MAGA people, have decided to invade American cities. They started with D.C., Washington, D.C., which is a federally controlled city.
Yep.
And can you shedding the light on this? It seems like the Bowser, Muriel Bowser? Muriel. Hard word for me to say. Muriel Bowser. Muriel Bowser. So she's starting to capitulate. She's saying that, the National Guard's doing such a good job. Is she saying that for real?
She is in a very difficult position, Chris.
Why is that?
Because Washington, D.C. is a federal territory. It has no sovereignty of its own, right?
Right.
So all the states, they have their own elected governments. They have their own.
There are many countries.
Governor. They have their own militaries.
Yeah.
And they have their own sovereign status within the boundaries set up under the Constitution. Washington, D.C. has literally none of that, because basically this city, which has, for the record, more people than several states do, way more people than Wyoming, for example, which has 2 senators and a congressman.
Yeah.
Washington, D.C. has absolutely none of that, no representation at the federal level. And what is important about that is that it means that the Washington, D.C. National Guard is directly responsible to the President of the United States. It is entirely up to the president, basically, when to call them out. In the same way that it would be up to, say, the governor of Georgia to determine when the Georgia National Guard is mobilized inside the state of Georgia. So what that means effectively is that Muriel Bowser, the mayor of Washington, D.C., her powers are granted to her and to the city of Washington, D.C. by the federal government, by Congress. And Congress can take those powers back at any time. Congress has the ability to veto any laws that are passed at the city level. Effectively, Washington, D.C. has the same relationship to the federal government that, say, the city of Tallahassee has to the Florida state government.
Right.
Which is to say that the Florida state government grants powers to Tallahassee and can remove those powers, basically. So it's a difficult position for Muriel Bowser to be in. Now, there are laws that do structure how the president can interact with Washington, D.C. After all, it's Congress that has control of D.C. And that's one of the reasons why the attempt by the Trump administration to seize control of the Washington, D.C. police force ended up falling flat. Because there actually are laws on the circumstances in which the president could do that, and those circumstances did not apply. But calling out the National Guard, no. The president can absolutely do that. He can't use them to enforce civil law, of course, because that would be a violation of the Posse Comitatus Act in the absence of any kind of insurrection or invasion, which there has been neither.
Right.
So yeah, but
So
Washington D.C. is they don't have a lot of protection.
So she's in a bad place. So she has to. So she's basically blinking out, "Help me," into the camera.
Probably, if she's saying the National Guard's doing a great job, I think that's probably how best to interpret that.
So
on the other hand, maybe she does mean they're doing a great job because they've been picking up all the trash at the Lincoln Memorial.
That's true. They are doing a lot of really crap work that they shouldn't be doing because of the National Guard, not trashmen. Yeah. So a couple of things have happened in the past week or so. Mm-hmm. The first one is that Trump has decided to kind of ceremonially rename the Department of the Defense Department of War, and
a thing which he has exactly zero power to do. It must be stated.
Yeah, but then Hegseth immediately had the defense put off there and put war on there, which. If you know anything about why you change the name from Department of War to Department of Defense, it lets you know where they think they're going, right?
Yeah.
It makes no sense to have a Department of War unless you plan on starting a lot of wars. That's why you say you're the Department of Defense, because you're not trying to start wars. You're trying to sell beef and soybeans. You're not trying to invade all these different countries for kicks and shits and giggles.
Well, and that's the thing. So the shift, the United States, it was the Department of War up until the 1940s.
Yeah.
And in the middle of World War II, it's changed to the Department of Defense. And the reason is that the federal government under Roosevelt, under Truman, they realized that having a Department of War looks bad, especially in the context of a potential threatening Cold War where, the Nazis are going down. Fascism is absolutely going to get its ass handed to it in both hemispheres. So it's going to be a battle between democracy and communism going forward.
Yeah.
Well, why would you hand the Soviet Union a massive propaganda victory of, we got a Department of War. It's great. We can't wait for World War III. No. You have a Department of Defense to point out,
we're not the ones who want to do it.
Yep, we're not the ones who are going to be starting shit here, my friends.
You're the one who wants the war, not us. We have a Department of Defense. And you notice that a lot of countries around the world, like the UK, has the Secretary of State for Defense, not the Secretary of State for War.
Exactly.
Spelled incorrectly, obviously. So after the name change, Trump's team or somebody decided to put up on Truth Social, "I love the smell of deportations in the morning. Chicago is about to find out." I'm sorry, it said Chicago, about to find out why it's called the Department of War. Mm-hmm. And Trump dressed up like, what's this, Colonel Kurtz?
No, it's not. No,
it's what's his face?
It's Robert Duvall's character.
Robert Duvall's
Apocalypse
character.
Now.
Apocalypse Now.
Yeah,
with,
the guy who says, "I love the smell of napalm in the morning." The guy who is presented as a total fucking sociopath, who is basically understood inside the context of the film to be one of the reasons why the war in Vietnam does not get won by Americans.
Yeah, so that's the person that they're having Trump emulate here while he has Chicago on fire, staring at a bunch of helicopters invading the city. This is insane on the highest level.
It sure is.
For a president, for their account, for whatever reason, to say, "I am looking to start a war with a city because it's funny, because jokes, because vibes."
Yeah, we're going to kill Americans, he's saying.
We're going to invade and kill Americans and take it over because vibes. And also, we'll talk about this a little bit later. This is obviously all just more distraction from Epstein. Mm-hmm. But you have no choice, just like Denmark, just like Canada, just like Mexico, to take some of this stuff seriously, because obviously he's not playing by any set of rules that we know about.
Yeah.
So, if he needs to have a couple of Americans or a couple 100,000 Americans, dead, so that we don't talk about Epstein anymore, and also to declare a state of insurrection or declare an emergency.
He certainly thinks he has the power to do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So this is what he's posted, I think, yesterday. And just as I was looking up this post to check out to see if it, basically to read it, he's now backpedaled massively, saying, "We're not going to war with Chicago." Think about that for just a second. It is 2025, and the president has had to clarify that he's not going to go engage in open warfare with one of his cities.
I mean, if the president did do that, I mean, there's impeachable offenses, Chris, and then there's the kind of thing where, I mean, so the nearest like historical example of that kind of thing that I can think of would be like Louis the goddamn 16th fleeing Paris in the middle of the revolution and leaving behind a note saying, "Aha, I've always wanted you bastards dead, and now I'm going to bring an army to kill you." Like, it's the kind of thing where, like, no, this is the executive basically being a traitor. Like, going to war against the country, engaging in literal treason, which is maybe the reason why someone convinced him, sir, that's a bad look.
Yeah.
It's bad to declare that you're committing treason against your country and declaring war on the people of the United States of America. You know, it's the wrong vibe, maybe.
When you become the enemy domestic.
Yeah.
In the oath.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
You want to backpedal immediately. And of course, it just shows the incredible weakness of the pliant Republican Party, of the MAGA folk, who, you know, again, anytime Joe Biden blinked twice, they're like, obviously he's mentally deficient. Exactly. You have the president of the United States posting, I'm going to invade and go to war with Chicago.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that President Trump, he's a really funny guy.
What a goof.
What a whippersnapper.
My goodness.
Wow. He's
irrepressible. He's freewheeling, Chris.
He's freewheeling. I mean, what a guy. Yeah. What a guy. I just went to the Rose Garden yesterday, and he was definitely still alive.
Oh, can we just for a second mention the fact that
he's still alive?
No, that they're calling it the Rose Garden Club, but they're calling it the Rose Garden Club.
Oh, yeah,
Chris,
the Rose Garden Club.
The Rose Garden Club.
Oh, yeah. It's you got to do the right things to get in there, guys.
They tore out all the roses, Chris. They tore up there is no Rose Garden, but they're calling it the Rose Garden Club, and now it's a patio, and it looks like the outside of a fucking chain restaurant.
And that's
a Panera, Chris.
And that's exactly what they want. I mean, it's indicative of these people. It's like, you know, they don't care about what it actually is. You call something the Rose Garden, it doesn't actually need roses.
No, who needs a Rose Garden?
Why does it need to be called the Rose? It's just you know, it's just a name.
Yeah.
And the amount of gold apparently that's been put in the White House is dangerous. It's like Saudi dictator levels.
Well, yeah, of course, because he thinks he is a king. This is why you don't elect fucking kings. France learned this the hard way, you know, when they elected Louis Bonaparte, the nephew of, Napoleon Bonaparte, right?
Napoleon Bonaparte, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? Because they elected him president, and then it was like, this is great being president. But you know what's cooler than being president? Vive l'empereur.
Being the emperor.
Yeah, exactly. Well. And how well did that work out for France? Finally declared war on Germany, and Germany kicked his ass and then captured him.
Whoopsie.
Yeah, it went really badly.
Yeah, well, I mean, interesting little history lesson there. Yeah. So, but as we, you know, that's where we are right now with this whole Chicago invasion thing, which there seems to be also some backpedaling on bringing the National Guard in Chicago, because obviously there was a court ruling, I believe, in LA that said you're not allowed to do this in LA.
Well, specifically that the attempts to use the National Guard to enforce civilian law, again, in violation of the Posse Comitatus Act, completely illegal. And, so it's really interesting, right? Because you keep using the word invasion to talk about the president sending in the National Guard.
Yeah.
And I want to make clear to our entire audience that you're not using that accidentally.
No, I'm not.
That is the only way to describe it, because the president has no ability to tell the National Guard from a state that is not Illinois to deploy to Illinois without the consent of the governor of Illinois.
And the problem is that he was planning on sending in the Texas National Guard.
Yeah, and that
to invade Illinois.
Literally would mean, because if you have a bunch of armed troops going somewhere across borders that they have no right to cross, that is invasion.
That's the definition of an invasion.
That's an actual invasion, you know? People coming in undocumented into the country, not an invasion. Rolling in and force with goddamn tanks, oh no, that's an invasion.
Well, that's the definition of an invasion. And again, there's now a rumor, I've seen some headlines saying that he might try to go to a city, for a red city, that is invited, that the governor's invited him into. But that's the same problem. Let's say you go to St. Louis, or you go to Lafayette, Louisiana, or you go to like Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, you mean, except that Atlanta, unlike Lafayette and unlike St. Louis, has much less of a crime problem than those two state cities.
It doesn't matter. All that matters is that some governor just said, President Trump, you're doing such a good job. Please bring in federal troops to control the crime problem that doesn't exist. Because then, of course, to bring in the National Guard to control crime means that crime is a problem in a red state, and it completely destroys the narrative that blue cities are the most dangerous cities in the world.
Yeah, that's funny.
So
you want to know how much murder has dropped in the last year in Chicago, Chris?
I would love to know that.
30%.
30%
drop in murders.
That's a lot
from last year. It's really big.
I mean, there's still a big city. It's not great. I mean, crime still exists.
Not even in the top 10 most high crime level cities in America.
No.
It's amazing. New York is one of the lowest crime levels of cities in the United States. Like all the top 10 cities for crime and murder in the United States, they're all in red states.
All of them.
Like it's absolutely, it's amazing when the American people have been so convinced that crime is always getting worse year after year, when it has in fact been dropping almost every single year and is now back to like basically what it was in the in the 60s before the big explosion in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, right? So I mean, we're almost kind of sort of back to normal in the larger American
but
sense
you wouldn't
of
belied that. But you wouldn't believe that given like the press and everything, you know, basically Chicago's a wasteland. St. Louis is apparently fine.
Exactly.
You know, Sacramento, you know, just kids walking around, you know, just without, you know, just wondering where their parents are because their parents are roaming the streets trying to find rats for food.
Obviously.
So,
well, you know, and the big problem there is all the lycanthropy, Chris.
All the lycanthropy.
Yeah, exactly. Big problem.
Can't go out at night. If there's a full moon, you really got to know where to go.
Yeah.
So we'll obviously keep an eye on that because, you know, that's a massive red line. That's if it gets crossed and nobody blinks an eye, then, you know.
Yeah, that's, well,
watch
you know,
out.
It's been fun democracy.
It's been fun American democracy. But let's talk about... Let's do the jobs report thing.
Let's do
that briefly on the jobs report because I want to spend more time on the last
Chris,
thing.
that we talk about Epstein, but
let's leave it to the end.
That's the thing, because actually this is one of the very few situations where legitimately Epstein has been used by the president as a distraction from something else. So, okay, like for those of you who are, you know, BLS heads, you know, bullsies as I call us, you know, you've been following the whole thing about, you know, about a month ago, the jobs report came out and it was quite bad for Trump. And what it said was that not only was July not a very good month for jobs, it was like 75,000.
Something like 76,000,
exactly,
I think.
Right? Jobs created in that month. And for comparison, with the United States and its growing population, you need an extra 150,000 jobs every month just to break even, just to keep the same proportion of people employed that you had the month before, right? So any job report that comes in above 150,000 a month, hey, that's decreasing unemployment, that's increasing employment, that's the kind of thing you want to see. Anything below that, well, that's not so good. That's an indication that, you know, things are softening a little bit. You know, and so that's 150,000. That's what your benchmark is. Now, in July, it turned out that it was only about 75,000 for that month. That's bad. But also the revisions came in for June and for May. And those said that actually, instead of really strong growth, that was over 150,000 for both of those months. In fact, it was more like 20,000. So that was very bad. Donald Trump responded by firing the woman in charge of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, putting in Mr. Antoni, not Antioni. I've been mispronouncing his name. My apologies to, you know, Americans with Italian surnames because that was just bad of me. I apologize there. I don't apologize to Antoni. He's a jerk. But anyway, so everyone was wondering, okay, does this mean they're going to be cooking the books? Or are they going to be just making up the numbers now? What is going to be happening? And it turns out that Mr. Antoni has not cooked the books, it seems.
Oh, maybe he hasn't had the chance yet. Maybe these are already coming out.
You're right. Maybe that's it. But either way, they didn't stop it. And maybe they wanted to have stopped it because, the August report's like worse. Because
it's not good.
Oh, no, it's really not good. It did say that July was better than we thought. It's 79,000 jobs, which again,
huge.
Still way below what you need just to break even, way below that. But it also said that June, instead of gaining like 20,000 jobs, actually lost like 16,000 jobs. 13,000 jobs?
Lost 13,000.
Lost 13,000. So that's not good.
It's not great.
That's not great. But the month of August, 22,000 jobs.
So there were 22,000 new jobs.
Yeah.
So you need 130,
150.
You need exactly. So there's 100, like a deficit of 100.
Yeah, that's 128,000 jobs that we needed just to break even, just to keep things as they were in July when things were getting worse. And so this is a real indication. Now, if you listen to the experts, you'll hear many different explanations for why the job market, after years of strong growth under Joe Biden, has suddenly decided to go. You may hear them talk about things like, well, with the new tariffs coming in, all of a sudden manufacturing is having a hard time with it because a lot of manufacturers, they got to import their raw materials. And if they got to pay high prices for that, well, that increases the price of what they got to sell. And that means they sell less. And that means they can't afford to hire as many people and produce as much.
Yeah.
And that would explain why manufacturing jobs, rather than increasing, as they did under Joe Biden, have now been decreasing under Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But that's only one explanation, Chris.
Okay.
Maybe another explanation might be the fact that, with the, huge cuts to government spending and the huge cuts to, government contracts, all of a sudden, a whole bunch of people who were employed by private companies doing work for the federal government now find themselves being turfed out on their collective butts.
That's the Doge benefit there. That's the Doge dividend.
Mm-hmm. Doge dividend right there. Yeah. So, that might explain why large numbers of people are losing their jobs. It might be all the chaos of the Trump administration when it comes to economic policy, going after the Fed, all the rest of it. But the one thing I think you'll notice in all these explanations, Chris, is all Trump.
I'm sorry. I don't think that's right. I mean, Trump is a genius. He's the smartest, most physically fit. He's the most alive that he's ever been. He must not have made these mistakes. It has to have been Biden, because all of America's problems are from the last administration. And everything now is fine. I mean, if you talk to Donald Trump, everything is fine.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to ask you to change your answer.
Oh, I see.
Just like he wants the BLS to change their answer, but they haven't.
Yeah. No, it's just amazing. All of this is exactly what you would have expected to happen. Like, this entire administration seems to believe at a very core level that reality is whatever you want it to be if you just want it enough. You can manifest a strong economy.
Let me put more meat onto that. I don't think it is manifest what you want. I think it's if you have control over several television networks and an entire social media platform, 2 social media platforms, you can tell people that the sky is green, right? And they'll look out the window and they'll know that it's not green. But if they turn on Fox News and Fox News is like, President Trump has succeeded once again in turning the sky green, this is the color of money, which everybody has in their pockets. And it's not in your pockets. That's what what they believe. They believe that they can just lie to your face. And because you are so enamored with the administration, you will believe what they say.
I mean, I can add some meat to those bones.
Oh, yes, and me.
I am going to yes and you. Oh my God, this is great. So there was this very famous social science experiment that happened several decades ago.
All right.
And
was it during the 60s?
It was probably during the 60s, and it probably would not have passed the ethics review of today. But so the way that this worked, right, was that they brought in the subject into a conference room with 9 other people, and all 10 of these people have been sat around a table, and they are shown pieces of paper, and the piece of paper would have 3 lines on it. And they would be asked, okay, is the middle line longer, shorter, or the same size as the 2 lines on the other side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the only person who wasn't in on it would be the subject. All the other 9 people would be actors. And all the 9 people who were actors had been instructed, you are to say that the middle line is clearly the shortest. In actuality, all 3 lines were exactly the same length.
Yeah.
And the question was, if you're confronted with everyone else saying, well, no, obviously, that the line in the middle is short, look at it. And you're looking at it and you're saying, no, those are equal lines. What the hell are you talking about? What do? Are you going to say, well, no, I'm sorry, I disagree. It's clearly the same size. What is going on here? Has everyone had a stroke but me? Or are you going to say, oh, God, have I had a stroke? What happened? What if everyone else thinks that they're seeing a shorter line and I'm seeing the line that's the same? They can't all be crazy, can they?
Yeah, it must be me.
Well, that's the thing, right? And I think the belief that the administration has is that not that you can necessarily convince everyone that the sky is green, but get people to doubt themselves.
Yeah.
And then say, look, I got to be making a mistake here, right?
Because they must know what they're talking about.
Right. I don't know everything. I'm sure that they wouldn't be they can't all be crazy, right?
The cool kids are telling me that this is cool, therefore it must be cool.
Well, or at the very least, I don't know that it's not.
Yeah, and that's where we are.
Yeah. So except that when it comes to jobs, Reality doesn't work like that.
Eventually, someone's going to realize that there aren't any jobs out there and they can only blame one person. Well, so we'll have to wait and see if that person actually gets blamed.
But what's really interesting about this, right, is that when that jobs report dropped, what is it that Trump tweeted out almost immediately afterwards? A tweet about the Epstein files and how they're all a hoax.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow.
Drawing people's attention right back to Epstein, because that is a better thing for people to be thinking about than the jobs report.
Because you can see and you can feel what's happening with jobs.
Exactly.
You have no idea what's going on in the Epstein situation, which brings us to the last subject of today.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
And this is a doozy. So many people who have thought about the Epstein issue have come back to a problem, right? A problem that needs some kind of explanation. And it's, if you are, say, Joe Biden, and you have the Epstein files, and that Epstein files has incredibly damaging information on Republican politicians or Donald Trump, why would you not release it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And maybe you wouldn't do it if you're Joe Biden because you...
It's old school.
You have a belief in fair play, and, or maybe it's because you're worried that, your buddy Bill Clinton is going to be mentioned in there, and that's going to be a real problem, and you don't want to have to deal with it. Or
it's mutual assured destruction.
Right, exactly. Maybe it's that, it could be several different things, right?
Yeah.
But of course, the exact same problem occurs if you're Donald Trump and you have the Epstein files. And if it is full of Democrats, like he says it is, why would he not release it?
Oh, and also we need to point out now that the current line on Donald Trump's association with Jeffrey Epstein is that Donald Trump was an FBI informant who was deep cover to out all of these people, but yet, of course, because he was deep cover, he can't actually release the files.
Now, Chris, that's a crazy claim. That's an absurd. Now, where's that coming from? Is that
the Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Oh, I see. Yeah, Mr. Mike Johnson.
Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Can we unpack that for just a moment, right?
Let's take 2 minutes to talk about the fact that the Speaker of the House of Representatives is claiming that the President of the United States was an FBI informant that is still refusing to release the information on which he was supposed to be informing.
Right, and that's a hell of a thing, right? But also, think about what this means if we tie this in with what Donald Trump said led to him ceasing to be friends with Jeffrey Epstein in the first place.
Yeah.
The story has been for years, according to Donald Trump, that there was a real estate deal, and that in that real estate deal, he swiped a property out from under Jeffrey Epstein, and Jeffrey Epstein got pissed, and that's why they stopped being friends way before, he got investigated for,
like a giant sex criminal.
Kind of thing. Well, that's weird. There's a website called Talking Points Memo, and the editor of that prestigious website, named Josh Marshall, had a very interesting post that I do want to talk about very quickly.
All right.
He points out that if we take that seriously, what's really interesting is this. Jeffrey Epstein later claimed that when that did happen, he threatened to basically, he thought that the way that Donald Trump had the money to buy that property in the first place, because Donald Trump's businesses were in the middle of going bankrupt at the time, was that he thought it must have been money laundering, getting money from the Russians and whatnot, and using it to buy a property as a straw buyer for them. And it is true that Donald Trump did sell that property within 3 years for a $50 million profit, which is interesting since he only bought it for $41 million in the first place. Yeah, so that's,
things that make you go.
Things that make you go, right?
Yeah.
So apparently, the thinking is Jeffrey Epstein gets pissed and threatens to, sue Trump. And in the suing of him in discovery, this would come out, the money laundering and all that. So then Donald Trump then shops Jeffrey Epstein for child rape.
Oh, my.
Right. Now, if that's what, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is referring to, that would imply that Donald Trump knew and was fine with Jeffrey Epstein's history of raping children.
Yeah.
And only decided to turn on him when Jeffrey Epstein was about to, potentially reveal criminal behavior by himself, which is not the heroic story that perhaps Mike Johnson thinks it is.
Yeah, but again, it's just an insane thing to have the Speaker of the House of Representatives, a third in line of presidency, put that out there as a as a statement.
Right.
But the reason that we're talking about this as well is because you'll give me the right person's name, but a member of the government has spilled the beans to apparently a date on what the government is currently doing with the Epstein files.
Hinge. A date from
Hinge date. So this guy, and Patrick will give me the name of this person, was on a Hinge date, or what he thought was a Hinge date, and she was just asking him all these questions about the Epstein files. And this dude, I believe, is pretty high up at the DOJ.
Yeah, apparently he's a deputy director of one of the units of the Department of Justice, which is, that's the thing.
And so she's got him on camera saying, "Oh yeah, Trump's definitely in there." But we're redacting all the Republican names and just leaving the liberal names.
Yeah.
And this is
specifically, we're redacting all the Republican names and only releasing the Democratic names.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is explicitly partisan. This is and that's a great thing, because that would be a violation of the Hatch Act, which prohibits people from engaging in partisan political activity on the government's dime, because that's not what we fucking pay them for now.
No, but of course, that could all be a lie. This guy could just be, mouthing off to impress his Hinge date. But here we are. Did anybody substantiate these reports?
Well, the Department of Justice did. Yeah. So they did admit that, yes, that's him, and yes, he said those things.
Whoopsie doodle.
It's just that he's claiming, you see, that he was just mouthing off, right? He wasn't.
Oh, so
he
it's
wasn't
all a
speaking
lie.
about right. Well, he was just trying to impress,
his Hinge date.
So, and it's very funny, Chris. It's very funny, because if you see the video, this man is, he's bald. He's in his 50s. No, it's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. But, he's okay. So he's a man of a certain age. Let's put it this way, right?
Yeah.
And his Hinge date lists her occupation as au pair.
Oh, my.
Yeah. So he thinks he's going to get freaky with a nanny. He thinks that an au pair in Washington, D.C., in her early 20s is absolutely
she's about
looking for. Yeah, she's all about it.
She's about it.
So this is a man who perhaps has not the best critical thinking skills. He wouldn't be the first man to get caught in a honeypot trap, but my God, man, that's embarrassing. So it's just kind of beautiful that the people that Donald Trump has chosen to staff his administration appear to be as stupid as he is. And that's kind of, I don't know. It's kind of like the circle of life, Chris.
It's not, it's just like, even if let's say that he's lying and he's deciding to say it in a certain way. Even if she wasn't recording you, she could still decide to take you in, or at least file a report saying this guy's telling me that he's being incredibly political in his apolitical job.
Yeah, and that she could go online and send out a tweet saying, "Yeah, I just had drinks with this
insert
guy."
Name here,
and he is literally saying that they're going to hide who is in the Epstein files according to which party they're in. Which, holy hell!
That tweet would have been explosive.
Because that's the thing. If the Trump administration knows that there were Republicans who, raped children, and is explicitly hiding the fact that they raped children, then the administration is, well, I don't know what conclusion you could draw other than they're okay with the raping of children.
Well, they're complicit. And so you have this world where either he's lying and he's just a dirty liar, and he's telling the truth. Yeah. And we don't know how that's going to work, because obviously they're not going to release the files.
And that's the thing.
According to, because the kind of last thing we'll say on this, Congress is trying to release the files, and rumor has it they might have the votes to release the files. But the question is, what files are they going to release?
Well, that's a really good question. Apparently, the Trump administration has made it known to members of the House of Representatives, where this discharge petition is being filed, that any vote for that discharge petition would be viewed as a hostile act. Yep, and that's a direct quote. That's why we're saying it in unison.
Because we both know individually that the President of the United States would deem the releasing of the file a hostile act towards himself.
Yeah.
Again, if he was just an informant trying to save people,
right,
he would be the hero of the story.
Right. If he was the guy who tipped off the feds, presumably immediately after learning about the whole child rape thing, because if he knew about it for years and years and years and did nothing until, he got annoyed for a different reason, then he would be complicit.
Accomplice.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
So, it kind of seems like no matter what the actual story is, Donald Trump did something really bad.
Well, he can't come out looking good.
No.
He can't. It doesn't matter what the situation is. You're associated with him. He can't come out looking good at all. So, and also we should note that last week, the survivors of Epstein all went to Congress.
They sure did.
And they pulled in a bunch of people and said, listen to our story behind closed doors. Mm-hmm. And it had people like Nancy Mace running out of the room in tears.
Yeah. Nancy Mace is not. I am not a fan of this woman.
I'm not a fan of her either.
No respect for her as a politician.
Zero respect.
I think that she is someone who is, perfectly willing to destroy American democracy,
willing to build the camps.
But she's also someone who is the victim of sexual assault.
Yep. And
it seems that all of a sudden, hearing testimony by women who had been raped as children, people who have had it's just something incredibly horrible happen to them, and then to have the president of the United States claim that they are a hoax. To say that actually, no, the whole Epstein thing is a hoax. And also Ghislaine Maxwell, who was the accomplice / fellow raper. We're going to put her in Club Fed. We're going to pull all the strings for her. Maybe we're going to pardon her. I mean, the fortitude of these women, the bravery of these women coming out and publicly stating what is true.
Yeah.
In the face of this, in the face of the opposition of the most
the
powerful
American
man
government.
in the world. Yeah.
Like they're going up against the American government and they're not billionaires.
So I'm not surprised that Nancy Mace, found that very, very, very hard to listen to and was so emotionally affected. She'd have to be a psychopath not to be.
But and the kind of people who seem to be affected, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And she's been on board with them for a couple months now.
MTG, to use her sobriquet.
Gross.
Yeah, she actually seems to take this bit seriously. I think this might be the thing that breaks her out of the QAnon.
But remember what we had said when this is all kicking off, that the gooey core of the MAGA movement around Trump was this subject.
Yeah.
Well, because they honestly believed that it was just Democrats drinking the bloods of babies.
Yeah. This was the QAnon thing, right?
Yeah, this is QAnon. QAnon believed that he was an FBI informant.
Yeah. And so for them, the release of the Epstein files should be the most obvious thing in the world. Destroy the Democrats, prove that, the right wing is the real arbiters of truth and justice, and then to have Donald Trump not do the thing that he said that he would do
and actively block its release.
I mean, it's got to be one of those things where you cast about for any possible explanation you can think of, but eventually you come up empty.
And none of them are good enough.
Right,
and none of them are good enough.
The only explanations that make any sense are exactly the ones that mean you put a child rapist in the Oval Office.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah.
So I guess we're going to have to wait and see what happens with that if Congress releases the files. And because there's so many different things floating around in the files, there are some people talking about congressmen, congresspeople using their effectively what we call here freedom of speech within the legislature to start naming names. Because you can't be arrested you can't be charged with a crime for doing that.
Right. You are not in any legal danger of being sued for defamation or for slander and libel if you're speaking in the House of Representatives or in the Senate.
Yeah, and the same goes here in the UK.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's one of those really basic levels of constitutional protection to even have representative democracy or even a republic or even a constitutional monarchy.
Yeah.
If they do end up using that very old and very basic freedom to start getting the truth out there, I think that would be a good use of that.
I think it'd be the collapse of MAGA. But again, one can live in eternal hope. But I think we've covered as much as we can cover today.
Yeah, because while we sit here speaking, more craziness is happening. So,
we haven't had time to talk about the Reform Conference, which, maybe I will do a short on it. I'm thinking about doing shorts.
That's a good idea. We should have shorts.
Yeah. So maybe if we find more time, maybe we can sort that out. But thanks for listening. And as always, I'm Dr. Silverstein.
I'm Dr. Armshaw.
And we are doctors.
Not doctors.
Good night.